All right, this is the late garden, and yes, I did get it out late. But this is Lucy's garden. I don't have a lot of it done, but I have some of it. I have some Blue Lake pole beans here, climbing on a little cattle panel. I'm looking forward to those. And I'm really impressed with how my little asparagus bed is coming along. And yes, as I've said many times, I break all the rules. I had seeds that had been given to me. I sprouted them. They all sprouted, came up in the little pots, and I couldn't throw any of them away. So there they are. So we'll see how that goes. And of course, the little okra plants do get enough sun here that they're doing fairly well. Now they also were planted very, very late, so they're just starting to bear, but I'm getting enough okra to eat on right now. And this little rose bush here is a blaze rose. We had that, my wife and I did, when we lived over in Crossville in town, and we brought it with us. So I know I've had that little sprout for probably somewhere between 25 to 30 years. And in this little garden, I have a couple of sweet potato plants here. I do not expect these to make. They don't have enough time, but it's an experiment. I want to make sure they're going to grow there. If they start producing any kind of a potato, I know that soil will be good for them. In the past, I've had problems sometimes growing sweet potatoes. And I cut that crepe myrtle down. It got up to about 20 foot tall. And in just about a week and a half, it sprouted out that much. I've still got to get it dug out. But the problem here is, and I'll show you right here, rock. Everywhere you go, there's rock. And I'll take you on down here in a second and show you the shelf that this little garden is setting on. And yes, it's setting on a rock shelf. Here is some little late tomatoes. I don't know if they'll make or not. I do need to come down here and tie them up. These right here are an F1 hybrid. These are celebrity tomatoes. And you do not prune them because they're only going to produce a certain amount of tomatoes. But I'm definitely going to need to get down here and tie these things up so that they're not laying on the ground. But next year, will I plant tomatoes on this? Probably not. I may raise some peas on it. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. It's too early to plant. And my cucumber vines that started over there, I think, and someone told me this, I really think that might be spider mites that's getting underneath those leaves, because it's not mildew on top, so it could very well be spider mites. But they're still producing little cucumbers, as you can see here. And it's going over here and continuing on. Now this is my first time ever raising little tomatillos. And I just picked one up off the ground. And it's a decent little tomatillo. And I raised these so that I could make some salsa verde for my son. He really loves salsa verde. Okay, and down from the cucumbers is some late squash. And they've not done real well, but that's to be expected. The blackberries have finally gone, and the new plants are growing out here in the walkway. But I'll be working with them. I may try to pull this one back through this fencing here and put it down on the ground like I did this one. Now the problem is I keep stepping on that one. And of course the peppers are doing fairly well. This one's not set on much, but the little jalapenos here have started producing quite a bit. And as you can see, my little red bell peppers are doing fine. And finally, I have some of my bigger tomatoes trying to get ripe. And these were put out real late, and I didn't think I would have anything on them, but they're really beginning to surprise me. The leaves look horrible because for about 2 weeks we had nothing but rain every day. And I do have a few contender beans that I'm going to need to get in here and pick either later this afternoon or tomorrow. And I'm very pleased with these chili peppers. Now, those will need to be picked. I'll take and lay them on the grill and blacken them on each side, and the skin will peel off. The skin is, boy, they're really hanging full down here. That skin's really tough, but I love using in when I'm making some chili. There's just nothing like having fresh chili peppers to go in it. And knowing me, I'll put some of my cayenne in it too. Of course, the squash and zucchini down here. This is the little yellow crookneck, and it's still trying to bear. But, and there's one that is getting away from me. I need to pick it while I'm here this morning. And I have noticed that when one gets big, the plant starts trying to concentrate on making seeds, and the others will rot off if you don't pick them off. I have no idea why that is, but I've seen that over the years. If you're going to keep squash bearing, you're going to have to keep it picked off. And as I said, we've had lots of rain, so this is that white zucchini. I'm not real thrilled with this white zucchini, and like I said, it was just an odd seed in my Black Beauty zucchinis. But when I cook this stuff, it stays so firm. When I do a vegetable bake, the others, everything else, including the other zucchinis, will be nice and soft, and this thing will still be crunchy. And I did pick some of the sage the other day and dried it. And yes, I've got a couple of cucumbers up here that I'm going to have to get the ladder because my vines from the other side of the garden have climbed up the fence, and I can't reach those without getting a step ladder. There, down here, I have some poblano peppers, and I'm really looking forward to harvesting those once they get big enough. It looks like I've got to tie some of these up, and yes, on this side of the fence, my tomatoes are starting to fall, so I'll tie them up. And these tomatoes look terrible, but that is because of the rain. It really doesn't look that much like blight. If it was blight, typically these stems would be dying as well, or at least mine always have in the past, but they're doing okay. And my little pot full of thyme, here, it's just going wild. Yes, Lily Mae. Yes, we run off and left you, didn't we, Lily Mae? All right, let's go over to the COVID garden. I'll lay my squash. Let's just take it over here and put it in the basket. And I might ought to bring my basket with me. And yeah, I picked enough okra there for me to have some fresh fried okra. Lily Mae, I know you love being in that, but get out of that. Get out of Daddy's asparagus. She just loves that asparagus patch. I have no idea why. It's a nice temp out here this morning. And I keep saying I'm going to get some fences made, or some gates made, but what can I say? It's cheaper just to continue using that chicken wire. And I'll definitely be planting the moneymaker again. If you notice, the leaves on it are a little damaged, but this thing is growing here underneath all of these trees. It's fairly shaded. I knew it was originally for growing in a greenhouse, but I picked I picked a small basket full of these. The tomatoes are not large. They have a decent taste. They're not as good as the others. I definitely have to get down here and pick my green beans. This is the brown Kentucky Wonder pole beans, which is what I was used to eating as a child. This is all my mother ever wanted Daddy to raise because it was her favorite bean. And that plant is going wild. Make sure I don't have any okra to pick on this. And if you'll notice, these okra plants are a lot bigger. I can't explain that other than to say that up on the upper side, it's no dig. This was no dig, but this was planted in some compost that was put down in the spring for the onions that just didn't do anything. And I am losing these zucchini vines down here. But as you can see, it's still producing the occasional zucchini. That's why I need to bring my basket. I never go down to the garden without it because I end up with some. Now that's a nice looking little pepper. And let's see what that one was. That's the red Marconis. That's why it's shaped that way. I never got around to getting these peppers tied up to this little fence. And of course, this is some more of the Guajillo peppers, and I'll pick these when I pick the others. These peppers here, the Guajillos, were planted before any of the others. And that was supposed to be some Blue Lake bush beans, and rather than coming out in the aisle like they were supposed to, the silly things have run up on that fence, but they're producing beans. I'm not going to complain. And this was an area where I lost several tomato plants, so it was pretty vacant anyway, so it's going to work out. But now I've got lots of blooms on this upper part, and that of course is my brown Kentucky Wonder pole beans on the opposite side. There's a few beans here, but there's going to be a lot of beans there. And this is what I'm really enjoying putting in my pickles, because I do love a little heat. This is cayenne peppers, and as I said in my pickling video, I've looked it up online. Supposedly a cayenne pepper is 10 times hotter than a jalapeno pepper, and I'm just loving putting pieces of that cayenne in my pickles. And as I pickle my okra, once it gets growing better, ooh, there's one that needs to be picked right there. I'll cut that while I'm down here. But when I start getting enough to pickle on this, I'll be putting cayenne pepper in my pickled okra, simply because I like heat. Well, I hope you've enjoyed my little garden tour here. Oh, and let me explain about this potato. This potato started blooming. It was a little early, I thought, for it. I pinched the dadgum blooms out of it. I wanted it to still continue to try to grow potatoes and not seeds. That's a little experiment. That's a volunteer. And I'm just raising it in that straw that I had boiled when I was doing my mushroom beds. So we'll see how it goes. And I see a few radishes over there, but the tops have been eaten by the flea beetles, but I see radishes under there, so I'll harvest those. Again, today is August 31st, 2022, and this is what my little garden looks like at the end of August. And I have about 45 more days before frost sets in. And I guess I should show you this. I had never raised comfrey, so I bought 3 little pieces, paid a fortune for it through the internet, and I really need to come down here and cut a bunch of these leaves off, stuff them in a 5-gallon bucket, fill it with water and put a lid on it and let them set for a while, and make myself some comfrey compost tea. And of course, I've got my lettuces ready to be set out, my fall lettuces. This tree is Solar Flare. I get that seed from Baker Creek, and I absolutely love that variety. This is something that I've had in the freezer for 4 or 5 years. It's called Burgundy Delight. I'd never opened the pack, but it's beginning to look pretty. These are struggling from the heat here, but I believe that's because they're the Landis winter lettuce. They're not going to be as tolerant of the heat because they will grow all winter long, but some of them look a little better. And of course, I like endive. A lot of people don't, but I planted a few endive seeds. And I'll be using this when I pickle my okra. This is actually a little pot I've got here on the deck that is sewed full of dill. And I have never seen a bunching onion be as big as these are. And the reason those pieces are dead is I've been cutting these scallions off and cooking with them. I do need to sit down here before I quit and harvest these Japanese eggplants. That one's got a little bit larger than what I like, but I need to go ahead and get those cut off. And that's my cutting celery. Of course, that's just a Utah tall. It's not anything special, but it is sold under the name cutting celery, and there should have been a lot more there, but there's not.